In the busy city of Enugu, where fashion houses light up the streets and dreams often get lost in the noise, there lived a young woman named Kamsi. She worked as a junior designer in one of the biggest fashion companies in the city. To everyone around her, she seemed quiet, almost invisible, but behind her silence was a heart that burned with ideas. While others left the office at closing time, Kamsi would stay behind, bending over her sketchbook under the dim light, filling page after page with bold designs that no one had ever seen before. Her hands moved with passion, her mind painting stories in fabric and color. She dreamed of runways, of lights, of applause, but she kept those dreams locked inside, hidden behind her soft smile. People at work barely noticed her. To them, she was just the quiet assistant who fetched papers and followed instructions. They did not see the fire inside her. In the same company worked her elder sister, Ngozi. Unlike Kamsi, Ngozi was full of charm. She laughed loudly, walked with confidence, and spoke in ways that drew people in. She was not known for her creativity, but for her ability to shine in any room she entered. People admired her, bosses favored her, and their parents celebrated her as the star of the family. Kamsi didn't complain. She watched from the shadows, sketching silently. But deep in her heart, she held on to a hope that one day, someone would finally see her light. At first, Kamsi thought no one in the company noticed her. But slowly, her sketches began to catch the eyes of a few colleagues. Someone would peek over her desk and whisper, "These are amazing, Kamsi," or another would smile and say, "You have real talent." Those little words lit a small spark in her heart. Maybe, just maybe, she was finally being seen. But before that spark could grow, Ngozi stepped in. One evening she leaned over Kamsi's desk and said softly, "Sister, you're too shy. You'll never survive in this company if you don't know how to speak up. Let me help you. Give me your sketches, and I'll present them in the meetings. Together we'll shine." Her voice sounded caring, protective even, and Kamsi wanted to believe her. After all, Ngozi had always been the confident one, the one everyone listened to. Maybe this was her way of lifting her up. With trembling hands but a hopeful heart, Kamsi agreed. She passed over her drawings, telling herself that it was a small sacrifice for a bigger dream. But Kamsi didn't know her sister's true intention. Ngozi wasn't planning to say, "These are my sister's designs." She wasn't planning to give her even a small piece of the spotlight. She wanted all the credit, all the praise, all the glory. Kamsi, innocent and trusting, continued sketching day and night, handing her work over, imagining both their names being celebrated together. She didn't realize she was feeding her sister's rise, while burying her own light deeper and deeper. Her heart was pure, her dreams were real, but sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who cut the deepest wounds. And Kamsi was about to learn that lesson in the hardest way. The day of the big board meeting arrived. The company's directors, managers, and even special guests filled the grand conference room. It was the kind of day that could change someone's career forever. Kamsi sat quietly at the back, clutching her notebook, her heart beating fast. She wasn't there to speak. She only wanted to see her designs being shown to the world, even if through her sister's voice. Somewhere deep inside, she hoped Ngozi would mention her name, just once, and give her the recognition she had always dreamed of. When it was Ngozi's turn to present, she walked to the front of the room with her usual confidence. She smiled, flipped open the portfolio, and began to speak. "These are my latest designs," she announced proudly. The words pierced Kamsi like a knife. She froze in her seat, her lips parting in shock, but no sound came out. Page after page, Ngozi presented the sketches, Kamsi's sketches, as though they were her own creations. The board members leaned forward, impressed. Murmurs of approval filled the room. Then came the applause, loud, thunderous applause that echoed like a cruel reminder of Kamsi's silence. The boss stood up and said with admiration, "Brilliant work, Ngozi. This is the kind of creativity we need to lead this company into the future." Smiles and nods surrounded her. While Kamsi's eyes blurred with tears she refused to let fall. She sat small and invisible in the corner, watching her sister steal the dream she had poured her soul into. Later that evening at home, the betrayal only deepened. Their parents threw a small celebration for Ngozi, clapping for her success. "Ngozi, you're truly the pride of this family," their father said with a proud smile. Their mother hugged her tightly, calling her a star. No one asked about Kamsi. No one noticed the tears she wiped quietly in the shadows. Kamsi smiled faintly so no one would see her pain, but inside, her heart was breaking. She wanted to scream, to tell the truth, to claim what was hers. But her voice was trapped by years of being overlooked, and in that silence, her sister's betrayal grew heavier, pressing down on her spirit like a weight she could not escape. Days turned into weeks, and the same painful cycle repeated itself. Kamsi would stay up late, pouring her heart into sketch after sketch, and in the morning, Ngozi would carry them into meetings with a bright smile and take all the praise. With every design, Ngozi's reputation grew. People at the company whispered about her genius. The boss gave her more opportunities. Even magazines began to feature her as a rising star in Nigerian fashion. Meanwhile, Kamsi faded deeper into the background. No one knew the truth. No one saw the hands that had drawn every line, shaped every dress, imagined every masterpiece. She was like a ghost in her own story, watching her sister shine with a stolen light. At home it was no different. Their parents showered Ngozi with love and pride. "You're going to take this family name so far," their father would say. Their mother would nod proudly. "Ngozi, you're unstoppable." And Kamsi, sitting quietly in the corner, would lower her eyes, hiding the ache inside her chest. But one evening, as she passed by Ngozi's room, she overheard words that shattered the last piece of her patience. Ngozi laughed with a friend on the phone, her voice dripping with arrogance. "Kamsi, she will never shine. She doesn't have the courage. I'll always be the star of this family. She'll always stay in my shadow." Those words cut deeper than any betrayal before. Kamsi stood frozen, her breath trembling, her fists tightening by her side. For the first time, the pain inside her turned into fire. That night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart racing with determination. She whispered to herself, "No more. I will not let her dim my light again." In that quiet moment, a new strength was born. The shy, silent Kamsi who had always hidden behind her sister began to fade. In her place rose a woman who was ready to fight, not with anger, but with her gift, her passion, and her truth. And this time, nothing would stop her from being seen. Kamsi did not rush to confront her sister. She knew words would be useless. Ngozi was too clever, too charming, and nobody would believe her without proof. So instead, Kamsi made a quiet decision. She would fight differently. She would fight with her work. From that day on, she began sketching in secret. She carried a hidden notebook, locking it away where no one could find it. At night, when the office was almost empty, she would stay behind, working under the soft hum of the fluorescent lights. Her hands moved quickly, her heart steady with determination. Each line she drew was not just fashion, it was her silent rebellion, her secret flame burning brighter with every page. She stopped handing her sketches to Ngozi. Instead, she gave her only simple ideas, things she could afford to lose, while her real masterpieces remained hidden. She worked carefully, always making sure no one saw. Yet, unknown to her, someone had begun to notice. The boss of the company, a man who had seen many designers come and go, started sensing something strange. Ngozi's designs, once praised as brilliant, now seemed uneven. Some collections looked breathtaking, but others looked rushed and ordinary. There was no steady hand, no consistent vision. Something didn't add up. He studied the sketches more closely and noticed another detail: handwriting. Notes written beside the designs were not the same. Some were bold and neat, while others were soft and delicate, filled with quiet passion. He frowned, his mind already suspecting a hidden truth. One evening, as he walked through the office after hours, he paused. In the corner, under the dim light, he saw Kamsi bent over her desk, completely lost in her work. The sight struck him, the focus in her eyes, the grace in her hands, the life in her sketches. He didn't say a word. He simply watched for a moment, his suspicion growing stronger. For the first time, Kamsi's light was no longer hidden. She didn't know it yet, but her secret flame had caught the eyes of the one person who mattered most. And soon the truth would begin to unfold. It was late in the evening, long after most of the staff had left the office. The building was quiet, the only sound the scratching of a pencil on paper. As the boss walked through the hallway, he noticed a faint light coming from one of the smaller rooms. Curious, he stepped closer and paused at the doorway. Inside, Kamsi sat hunched over her desk, completely lost in her work. Her eyes were focused, her hands moved quickly, almost as if the designs were flowing straight from her soul onto the paper. She didn't hear his footsteps, didn't notice him standing there. For a moment he simply watched. And in that moment he understood. This girl, the one everyone overlooked, the one who never spoke in meetings, was the real artist. Every line carried passion, every sketch was alive with detail. Suddenly all the pieces made sense. Ngozi's inconsistent talent, the mismatched handwriting, the way her explanations of designs always sounded rehearsed. It was Kamsi all along. The boss felt a mixture of admiration and anger. Admiration for Kamsi's brilliance, and anger that she had been buried in the shadows for so long. But instead of confronting her immediately, he made a decision. If the truth was going to come out, it had to be undeniable. Everyone had to see it with their own eyes. The perfect opportunity was near, the National Fashion Expo in Lagos. It was the biggest stage in the country, where designers showcased their newest collections to the world. The company had been preparing to unveil a new line there, a line built on Ngozi's supposed genius. The boss quietly left the doorway without disturbing Kamsi. As he walked down the hall, he already had a plan. At the expo, both sisters would be tested. One would be asked to speak, to explain the designs, to reveal the heart behind the work. The other would have no place to hide. For years, the truth had been covered by silence. But now the stage was set. And under the bright lights of Lagos, the world would finally discover who the true star really was. The day of the National Fashion Expo arrived, and the energy in Lagos was electric. The hall glittered with lights, cameras flashed from every corner, and the air buzzed with excitement. It was the kind of event that could make or break a designer's career. Ngozi walked onto the stage with her usual confidence, her head held high, dressed in the most elegant gown. To everyone watching, she looked like the perfect rising star, ready to claim the spotlight once again. The audience waited as the new collection was unveiled, stunning dresses, bold patterns, and unique styles that drew gasps of admiration. Reporters scribbled notes, photographers snapped endlessly. Ngozi smiled proudly, pretending the work was hers. Then the boss, standing at the side of the stage, cleared his throat. "Ngozi," he said smoothly, "perhaps you can share with us the inspiration behind these designs. Tell us the story behind the art." For the first time Ngozi froze. She opened her mouth, but the words tangled on her tongue. Well, the fabrics, they are inspired by, the colors of nature," she stammered. Her usual charm slipped away, and the silence that followed was heavy. Murmurs began to spread through the crowd. Something was wrong. The boss let the moment linger, then turned his gaze toward the audience. Finally, his eyes found Kamsi, who was standing quietly at the back. His voice softened. "Perhaps you can explain, Kamsi." The entire hall shifted, every eye turning to the girl no one had noticed before. Kamsi's heart raced, her hands trembled, but she took a deep breath. Slowly she walked to the stage. Her voice was shaky at first, but steady with truth. "These designs, they are inspired by the women of Enugu. Strong women who carry their families, who turn struggles into beauty. Each dress tells their story, their pride, their courage, their grace." The hall went silent, not with doubt but with awe. The passion in her words touched everyone listening. For the first time, Kamsi's voice was louder than her sister's shadow. And in that moment the world finally knew the truth. The applause that followed was not for Ngozi, it was for Kamsi, the true artist who had been silent for far too long. The hall erupted the moment Kamsi finished speaking. For a few seconds there was silence, stunned silence, then a wave of gasps swept through the crowd. Reporters leapt to their feet, cameras flashing wildly as whispers turned into loud chatter. Everyone had just witnessed the truth unfold before their eyes. The shy girl in the corner, the one no one noticed, had just revealed the heart and soul behind the entire collection. The boss stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "let there be no confusion. The real genius behind this work is not Ngozi. It is Kamsi." His words echoed through the hall like thunder. Ngozi's smile vanished instantly. Her face drained of all color, and her body stiffened as though the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. She looked around desperately, but all she saw were eyes filled with disappointment and judgment. The applause that once belonged to her was gone, stolen by the truth she had tried so hard to bury. Reporters rushed toward Kamsi, shoving microphones in her direction, eager to hear more from the girl who had been hidden for so long. Cameras followed her every move, capturing the moment the real star finally stepped into the light. Kamsi, though nervous, stood tall, her eyes shining with tears, not of pain this time but of release. In the audience, their parents sat frozen. Their father, who had always boasted about Ngozi, lowered his head in shame. Their mother, who had showered Ngozi with endless praise, could not meet Kamsi's eyes. They had celebrated the wrong daughter, blinded by charm while ignoring true talent, and now the whole world could see it. Ngozi tried to speak, to defend herself, but her words were drowned out by the voices of truth. No excuse could erase what had been revealed. Her betrayal was no longer hidden in the quiet corners of their home. It had become a public disgrace, a humiliation witnessed by hundreds and soon to be told by thousands. For the first time the shadow shifted. The star everyone thought they knew had fallen, and in her place, the real light was finally shining. Kamsi had not just been seen, she had been crowned by truth. The days after the expo felt like a dream for Kamsi. The moment the truth came out, doors that had always been closed suddenly swung wide open. The boss, in front of the entire audience, turned to her with a proud smile and said, "From this day forward, Kamsi will serve as our head designer." The hall erupted in applause again, this time purely for her. For years she had worked in silence, unseen, but now the whole world wanted to hear her voice. Fashion houses from Lagos, Abuja, even Paris and Milan began reaching out. Emails flooded the company, phone calls poured in. Everyone wanted to work with a young designer whose work carried such soul and meaning. Reporters wrote about her as the hidden jewel of Enugu, and social media exploded with her story. Strangers she had never met called her an inspiration, proof that talent and patience could outshine arrogance. Kamsi handled it all with quiet grace. She didn't brag, she didn't gloat. She smiled softly, answered with humility, and let her work speak for her. Her strength wasn't in loud words but in the calm dignity she carried, and that calmness only drew more admiration. People respected her not just as a designer, but as a woman of resilience and truth. Meanwhile, Ngozi's world crumbled. She was quietly dismissed from the company, her reputation ruined. The same colleagues who once admired her turned their backs, unable to trust her again. At home, she faced silence instead of praise, regret instead of celebration. For the first time, her charm had no power. For Kamsi, it was the beginning of a new life. She no longer walked in her sister's shadow. Her voice, once small and trembling, now filled rooms with confidence. When she stood before her team as head designer, she felt the weight of her journey, the pain, the betrayal, the tears, but also the joy of finally being seen. For the first time, Kamsi wasn't just a dreamer with hidden sketches. She was a star, shining with her own light, and no one could take that away from her again. Months passed, and Kamsi's life changed completely. With her new position and growing fame, she saved enough to chase a dream she had once only sketched in her notebook. In the heart of Enugu, she opened her very own design studio, a place filled with color, fabric, and creativity that carried her name on the front wall in shining letters. The day of the grand opening was nothing short of magical. The street outside was decorated with lights and flowers, and people from near and far gathered to witness the birth of something new. Reporters lined the entrance, photographers clicked endlessly, and young girls pressed against the glass, eager to see the woman who had become their inspiration. Standing at the center of it all was Kamsi, dressed in one of her own designs. Simple, graceful, yet powerful. And beside her was the company boss, the same man who once saw her sketching quietly under a dim light. With pride in his eyes, he cut the ribbon and declared the studio open. The crowd cheered, the cameras flashed, and Campsie felt her heart swell with gratitude. Inside, models walked gracefully, showcasing her newest collection, dresses that carried not just fabric and thread, but pieces of her story. Each design spoke of struggle, strength, and victory. As Campsie looked around, she saw the faces of people who finally saw her, not as someone's shadow, but as her own star. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathed deeply, and whispered to herself, "They tried to erase me, but I became unforgettable." And in that moment she knew, this was not just her crown, it was her destiny, made by her own hands.